It's Independence Day. One of the songs that you're going to hear perhaps at your cookouts, either that or your local county fireworks display, is going to be God Bless America. Now, I've always wondered the correlation between religion and heavy metal. I'm kind of a weird guy that always wonders if somebody is more or less willing to maybe listen to a specific band or style of music based off of their faith. Myself, I used to be a Roman Catholic, so I was under the Christian umbrella whenever I was younger. And strangely enough, it wasn't the music whatsoever that actually changed me into what I am now, which is more of a realist, somebody who's a little bit unaffiliated with all of that stuff, but still studies it a little bit, still kind of has a little bit of that link left. And really what it was that changed me was just general exploration within my own thought process, my own exploration of the world that was around me, and the inconsistencies and consistencies that I happen to attribute to both. However, with some folks, this is a very keynote aspect of their life. It's something that's extremely large and something that needs to be addressed. So let's talk about it just a little bit. So I don't want to reserve this just to Christianity. I really don't want to do that. I want to also include the Islamic faith. I want to include the Jewish faith. I want to include everybody. However, my knowledge of Christianity is vastly larger, and so for that reason, I may seem to be really tailoring this a little bit more toward that, and I do apologize for that. I don't aim to disregard anybody, but it's something that's very true in every single faith. In every single faith, you may have something that is considered to be a little bit taboo, something that's considered to be wrong, and you actually go through a lot of different persecutions, possibly, if you decide to violate that taboo. For example, over in the Islamic countries, there was a metal band from Iran that was imprisoned just for making heavy metal music. Now, it was one that was also speaking a little bit of ill toward the Muslim faith, so, there is that. But what about with Christianity and white metal? Either that or Christianity with black metal and death metal. There's a little bit of a correlation there as well. Black metal and death metal usually spout some anti-Christian antics, all depending on the band. This is not a universal truth, ladies and gentlemen, and black metal will sometimes do the same. Of course, they had the church burnings, etc., etc. So, as a Christian, this may seem like something that's a little bit dangerous to go for. It might be something that will violate your views a little bit, either that or you're just not going to have a very enjoyable time with the music. You could listen to it and perhaps get some of the value of the musicianship, the actual playing, but whenever it comes to the lyrical sense, whenever it comes to the overall imagery, the theme, it's probably not something that's going to be tailored to your liking and may turn you off. Now, bands like Striper or other groups that happen to fall under the religious umbrella do exist, and it's something that should be welcomed with open arms. Even though I understand that a lot of Christian music doesn't get a favorable reputation from a lot of people, considering it seems overly derivative, extremely cheesy, and some even just seem to, blatantly rip off the stuff from other bands and spin a Christian theme on it, similar to t-shirts and stuff like that. It is still something that should be seen as recognizably valid. There are plenty of groups out there that have been able to sort of jostle in some religious themes with some of their music, and the one that I can think of is Dream Theater. Dream Theater is able to throw that in every so often, very once in a way. It's not something that really blatantly slaps you in your face, but you can definitely see some of the themology present within their music, and some of the themology of the healing process of, say, the 12-step suite definitely is present as well, considering within the 12-step program, one of the very first things you have to do is admit that you have a problem and that there's a higher power. So it's also something that you can find in some conceptual releases. Orphaned Land is very good for this as well, considering one of their albums speaks about multiple faiths and the different process of what that album was speaking about. It was talking about Christianity, it was talking about Islam, and talking about Judaism, which was very cool. And really, that's a combined effort right there that really shows that there can be a lot of unity that is gained within the heavy metal community, even with the boundary of religion seeming to be present. There doesn't necessarily have to be a boundary, and really as a fan, you don't necessarily need to subscribe to a faith or unsubscribe from your faith in order to enjoy a lot of the music and enjoy a lot of what is being represented. Now, some will definitely decide that they wish to remain in areas that are a little bit more of a safe haven based off of their own beliefs. And we shouldn't really, bash these people for that. We shouldn't say that they are being a bad metal fan because they're unwilling to accept everything. There are some folks, or there are some people, that are very dedicated to their beliefs. They're very dedicated to that which they are. And that's something that should be respected as opposed to lauded. It's something that instead should be seen with a little bit more of the idea that they are doing the same thing that we do with heavy metal. Somebody who listens to just about any type of heavy metal out there, who is a subscriber to the universal truth of heavy metal music, is kind of doing the same thing to somebody who is subscribing universally to a religious tongue. Does that mean that heavy metal is its own religion? Nah, let's not get overly metaphoric about it. But there are plenty of people out there that no doubt could see the comparison points and actually feel like there's a draw there, and actually feel like maybe, just maybe, there should be some sort of religion that is centered around the heavy metal arts. What's amazing about this music, what's amazing about heavy metal as opposed to various other styles of music, is that this is a global genre of music. Now, while pop music is global, it's more representative of, baseline cultures. While heavy metal has that truth as well, they do tackle worldly manners as well. So this is something where that sort of closeness between the other portions of the globe is a little bit more present in heavy metal music. There's just a little bit more that seems to feel like unity. And based off of that, you're going to see a lot of different religions reflected. Whether it be in a positive or negative light is one that is very much juxtaposed based off of what a band is all about, whether or not they are for or against the idea, and sometimes style of music or style of metal can dictate that also. With white metal, this is kind of a curious case. This is the logical antithesis of black metal, which is very much evil and against Christianity, whereas white metal is one that actually tries to throw in some of the positivity and some of the positive values of Christianity within their music and within their construct to create something that is, still the same as far as sound criteria is concerned, but with a different message. Is this something that should be seen with negativity? No, it really shouldn't. And really, the scene is kind of small. It's not one that has had a large group of bands throughout its, history. This is instead something where you see a little bit more of those Christian positive themes spun about within progressive metal, or even in some, heavy metal circles, some thrash circles. You might even see it in some power metal as well. Even within the high fantasy, there's still a sort of strange alliteration that is sometimes present, or allegory, should I say. And that's another thing that needs to be really remembered. Some of the symbolism that you get within heavy metal music, or really any music, could be derived from some of the stories of Christianity or some of the stories of other religions that exist throughout the world. There's definitely something to be said about how heavy metal music feels inspired by multiple things that you perhaps don't see in other genres of music. Genres such as pop or even some rock music is all about partying, having a good time. Either that, or if you're Led Zeppelin, the Lord of the Rings. Heavy metal likes Lord of the Rings a lot as well, but they also dig all sorts of literature, and some of those literature happen to also be, the holy books. And you can sometimes see the drawing of conclusions that could be made from certain lyricism and associations and blah blah blah. Concept albums are also very rich for this, considering you can sometimes take a pattern of 2 or 3 lines of lyrics and immediately associate it with something else. Either way, this is something that's more drawn on the explorative process of the end listener, and that needs to be repeated. It is most often derived off of the end experience of each individual listener. If you're a listener and you don't feel comfortable hearing lyrics that are anti-Christian, or hearing lyrics that are anti-Muslim, anti-Judaism, anything of that variety, if you feel like they've sort of gone a little bit too far and that your faith is being sort of tested based off of that, then it's okay to walk away. It's not something that makes you more or less of a man. Though I will say this, if you do like the music that swirls around it, there's a good chance that you're going to be coming back to that. There's a good chance that you're going to challenge yourself with that once again, and see if you're able to make it through the song without having any sort of reaction. Not necessarily to become numb to it, but to enjoy the music and kind of distance yourself a little bit from the message. Because musicianship overall, in some areas and arenas of heavy metal, is one that can easily draw you back in. Now, as Heavy metal, a genre that is going to potentially transform you away from your religion and embrace atheism or anarchy or realism or agnostic style? Well, those that have weak faith are probably going to be tested from various arenas as opposed to just purely from the musical outlet. I think that this is one that would affect the youth a little bit more than an established adult that has been a practicing member of a faith for 20 to 30 years. If you're already having some shakiness within your own faith, then that's a process and that's a question that you need to ask yourself. You shouldn't allow music or the media or even your family dictate whether or not you stay into something. It should always be something, a question that you ask your own heart, to sound cheesy and actually kind of borrow a line from Christianity. But this is something also where the music can also kind of be your saving grace in a way. Not necessarily within your religion, but at least keeping you a little bit more calm. There's some tunes out there in the heavy metal universe that can keep you level-headed enough where making that decision might not be nearly as difficult. In conclusion, this is something that is still wildly interesting. It's something that may not necessarily ever have a pure answer, and there's always going to be a little bit of a rivalry that takes place within the heavy metal construct, considering the various different ideals that are being presented and painted. But the one thing that definitely needs to showcase itself in a more universal way is our ability to communicate within one another, regardless of what our makeup is. If we're able to somehow come together a little bit, then the real winners are, well, everybody. That's the cool part about it. You can have a conversation with a heavy metal Christian, such as I have with a couple of you out there, and as somebody who is not a heavy metal Christian, or a heavy metal Jew, or a heavy metal Muslim. It's definitely something that's pretty neat. It's very cool. And it kind of brings that whole world a little bit more together. It's kind of like what they say the internet was going to do, or what Facebook was going to do. Only instead of it being through the power of wires and things like that, although you probably are using those wires to speak to these people, it's not like they just walk up to you and say, "Hey, how you doing?" You have somehow broken down borders and hand shook with people that perhaps you never thought that you would. So overall, approach things with an open mind, and there's a good chance that you're going to be taken on a pretty awesome journey, not only with heavy metal, but also within learning about the different faiths that this world have to offer. Either that, or the different ideas that this world has been, just dying to share. Take care. My name is coverkillernation. If you have any thoughts about this, leave them in the comments below. I'm definitely interested to hear your take on this. Take care.